What's going on, guys, and welcome back. Today's the day. We're going to be going through every single elite top tier deck that you can be playing right now in Marvel Snap to help you climb faster, easier, and probably most importantly, give you an idea of what you might come across when you're going in the Marvel Snap ladder for the December meta. And we're going to separate today into 4 different categories for the meta deck report. It's been a hot minute since we've done this. We're going to have the most played decks just number-wise across the ladder in post-infinite gameplay, but this should have a good idea of what you're going across in a typical Marvel Snap game. We also have the best win rate decks, just flat out which ones are performing the best by the numbers. We've got hot and honorable mention decks that are maybe not the best decks out there, but they're definitely performing. And then we've got the top 5, the overall best 5 decks in the game currently. Now, I'm trying to think of like the best way to describe the current meta in Marvel Snap.
Ready? Go!
Just meh, right? Like, a lot of people are not excited about the meta. There's a wide variety of winning decks. You're going to see that today. But the core issue is the ones at the very top, they're pretty damn polarizing. So we do have a couple of patches before the holiday season ends. But with that being said, let's go ahead and have a quick run through here, not diving too deep, of the most popular decks at the moment. Now, starting at the very top, we have Wicked Destroy. As you guys know, this is a Nico Minoru Destroy build, and this is by far the most played archetype at the moment with over 37,000 plus games played since the latest patch. At number 2, we have a bit of a step down, but it's 20,000 games plus with Alioth Lockdown. Odds are you cannot escape some form of lockdown control decks this season, and very popular for a lot of people to slam down Pro X and then obviously pull out the Alioth. Now, deck number 3 is the return of High Evo and She-Hulk back into the meta with about 15,000 games played. The turn 7 monster She-Not deck returns with its synergy of Sunspot, Infinite, and then slamming down She-Hulk with the Toxic Leech involved as well. This is highly popular within Snap at the moment. Number 4 is the Try the True Dependable Discard. It's been the same since about February, putting up good numbers, and it can survive most metas, so very popular as well. Number 5 is probably one of the most hated, and it's Loki. Now, you'll see Loki is doing pretty good performance-wise, but maybe people are getting sick of it, playing it less. But overall, the numbers are a bit down, but this is the Werewolf by Night version. Number 6 is the return of Rocks and Hawks with Miss Marvel mixed into it as well. Definitely performing at a high level. Tons of Darkhawk in the meta right now. Number 7 is a Nihilist Lockdown. Number 8 is going to be our ongoing ramp. The return of Electro comes, but this time, instead of all on reveal, we've got a bit more ongoing, with Miss Marvel being a premier card. Number 9 is probably the most shocking. Cerebro 5 is heavily played since the latest patch. It's probably been the best it's ever been. A lot of great 5-power cards. We're seeing that with the numbers. And then 10, we've got Darkhawk Bounce. Black Widow got a lot better in the typical America Chavez bounce deck. Utilizes simply the power of on-reveal cheap cards and Darkhawk as a finisher. So yes, there's good odds as you climb in Marvel Snap, whether that's post-infinite or just during the ladder, that if you see some of these cards as early identifiers, you're probably, most likely, going against one of these decks. But let's go ahead. We're going to transition to the best decks right now in terms of win rate. What are going to be the best ones, most reliable, and we definitely have some standout options. Now, for those that care, this is going to be at least 4,000 games played, and this is all post-infinite as far as the stats go. Wanting to look at the highest level of competition currently in Snap since the latest patch. And we start with number 1, and that is a Nihilist Bounce. Arguably the best deck right now in Marvel Snap with a combination of Sentry followed by a Nihilist. It's an incredible turn 5 swing to handle. And on top of that combo, you've got Werewolf by Night being easily one of the best cards in the game. I'd say probably top 5 for an overall deck that in terms of win rate at the moment is extremely tough to counter. Wolf is going to be able to dodge priority combined with just cheap power on reveals that you're going to see in a lot of decks at the moment that can be utilized over and over with Beast. Nico Minoru gives plenty of flexibility. You've got Spider-Ham to counter, Forge to build up power, and then just playing Demons on the last turn just cap off the overall power. Overall, just a top tier deck with a 59% win rate, over 4,000 games played, and a ton of average cubes to boot. Next up is a deck that you've either been playing non-stop or you absolutely hate it, or both actually. Loki by Night, or Loki decks in general, is an ability that is clearly the best right now in Snap. Given the right draw, it's almost always a battle that gives you the advantage heading in. And once again, we're combining tech cards like Rogue who's flexible and can adjust to the meta with Werewolf by Night and those on reveal packages again to boost up both Wolf and Collector. And then just the cherry on top is using the opponent's cards against them, which most of the time is going to be Alioth, so you can counter their plays on turn 6. This is simply one build of the deck. It's got a 58% win rate. This specific deck has 6,000 games, but there's way more than that. And there's so many different ways to play Loki, which makes it continue to stay in the meta even after OTAs and card balance patches. Now, deck number 3, we've got Junk Disrupt. You guys are going to see a common theme today of Darkhawk with disruption cards sprinkled into a large majority of meta decks. Black Widow went from being okay and not making the cut to extremely good and polarizing. She and this deck is able to counter decks like Loki that want plenty of board space for the Wolf or your clone cards to play. And on top of this, Hawk and Sentry alone is usually enough power to win you the game. Now at the 4 slot, we're not going to strive too far away from the last build with Dark Doom. Now this is going to be taking the approach of having huge power early on, gaining priority with the likes of Darkhawk, Miss Marvel, and using Nebula and Jeff to win the game with either Alioth or Doctor Doom. A lot of these decks are going to utilize this premise, but this one's kind of the all-in package for that. And right now, with the given ongoing meta, Super Scroll has insane value in the deck. Now, at number 5, making its return, I've done a full video on it, but if you guys have not played it, Roxanox is just back and better than ever. I thought this deck was going to be dead after its heyday, but it has come back again with the arrival of Miss Marvel, having Black Widow be much better, Snow Guard as an insane turn play to build up the Devil Dinosaur, or just to use those cards against turn 7 decks, and then having a great cap off with Doctor Doom or card generation that Agent Coulson gives you. There's a surprising large amount of 4-cost and 5-cost cards that can swing the game in your favor like Legion, so Agent Coulson is a must include in the deck. And then Mystique finally makes her way in, being able to copy Zabu, Devil Dinosaur, Darkhawk, or Miss Marvel, all of them being top tier options to copy. Now at number 6, we talked about it a bit earlier, but Lockdown is kind of the name of the game this season, and that's because you look to shut down a lane early with Storm or Professor X. You can boost it up with Miss Marvel or Jeff, and then the cherry on top is once you've won one of those lanes, you play Alioth to win the other. If you don't draw Alioth, you've got Doctor Doom and Gamora in the limited space that your opponent can play in. A lot of movable cards. Daredevil, even though is bugged, you can still see what the opponent's doing most of the time to counterplay. And then Medusa is one of the easiest value stats to have in the game. At number 7, we still have Shuri Sauron surviving the meta, and that's because we've got the right tech cards built into it to counter the other decks out there. Armor is going to help protect our big cards from the likes of Shang-Chi, and then we have Enchantress to not only help us with our Typhoid Mary, but we can also get rid of Lizard and opponents' ongoing cards. Having the huge swing of Ebony Maw with 7 power and then playing down Typhoid, copying all these with Taskmaster, moving into lockdown lanes with Vision. A straightforward deck, you guys know it by now, but it does still survive the top 10 and is an extremely great deck. Now at number 8, one of the most popular decks this last season is because it doesn't care what the meta is. As I've stated, Dependable Discard has the decks that it absolutely slaps. If you get the right draw, and with the new Hellcow buff and the somewhat recent Blade buff, the deck is just hyper consistent. It's got a lot of locations that work for it, a super straightforward playline, and it can put up respectable power. Nothing crazy, but enough that the Apocalypse with Dracula, people continue to underestimate how much that can win a lane. Either you're just all about discard or it's just not your playstyle. Either way, discard is going to probably stay within the meta for as long as Snap is going. There's nothing really slowing it down, and we don't have a ton of discard cards coming out, but once they do, they're going to continue to ramp up its overall power. Now, rounding out the top 10 list, we have at number 9, the High Evo deck. This did make the most played as well, but we've got ourselves the deck with the right amount of counter cards. They turn 7 slam, and simply put, if they don't have a Storm, a Scarlet Witch, a Magic, or something to get rid of, like Snow Guard, that Limbo, you're probably going to win. The Leech and then skipping turn 6, slamming down She-Hulk, Hulk, or Infinite is typically enough to win. I do like sprinkling in something like Moon Girl in this deck for the double up on She-Hulk. But High Evo, the Cyclops alone is one of the best value cards in the game. Sunspot, Misty Knight, all these synergize together, making it one of the best decks to be playing. And then lastly for the top 10, and again, a lot of decks did not make the list that I wanted to, but these are simply put the highest win rate with 4,000 games of data, is Wicked Destroy. This could arguably be higher. It just has so many games played that could be taking down the win rate. This is my preferred deck if I'm just on a losing streak and I need to play something hyper consistent. If you have Nico Minaru, that is going to be the card that just accelerates Destroy to the next level combined with X23. A lot of flavor in cards that you can switch out, like Arnim Zola for Deathlock. The deck has so many favorable locations, and it's just borderline a ton of fun to play, which is why it's the most played deck right now in Marvel Snap. Now let's go ahead and talk about the hot honorable mentions. Again, these are kind of flavored decks that perform well, but, you know, they're not the greatest decks out there, but they can compete. High Evo has its toxic variant of the deck with Abomination. This deck is really good, and I think in the right matchups, just as good as the other High Evo deck with a different playstyle. Silver Surfer, guys, I made a deck guide on this about a week ago, and it's been really on the rise lately with plenty of ways to put out dependable power. Every single counter card built into the deck. You know what you're doing with Silver Surfer, and it can build up high. It's probably one of the better combo decks at the moment, and rightfully deserves a place as it's a consistent tournament winner. Now, as far as some more cheeky decks, we have Phoenix Force, which, as you guys know, Phoenix Force has been in a weird kind of era in Marvel Snap. It's probably the best it's ever been at the moment, with cards like Forge getting a nice bump up and Doctor Strange going down in cost. Simply put, if you draw the right combo and your opponent doesn't have a way to counter you with something like Killmonger, you're probably going to win the game. You've got a lot of alternative paths now with Deadpool in the deck, and overall, one of the better decks to be playing, alongside Magneto Control. Now, this is all about where the meta is at, and there's a lot of flexible options and cards here, but Magneto or the On-Reveal Destroyer deck, both of these are just decks that counter so well, put up a reliable power, and can handle what the meta is at the moment. Lastly, we finish off the list with Classic Patriot. You guys know Ultron has had a place in my heart since Marvel Snap's beginning, and Patriot's always been in the meta. You can win with just pure stats and value, and that's what Patriot does best. There is a good amount of Rogue and Enchantress right now, so that can really hurt you. But if you don't see those, odds are you're going to come out with a winning hand. So taking all this into consideration, let's talk the top 5. So looking at win rate and games played, these are going to be the best of the best. Now, I want to make sure you guys know the stats aren't everything. All right, mixing in cards is very important. Don't completely net deck. Then people know exactly what you're playing. Throw in cards that you obviously like to play. And on top of that, be sure to know that stats also don't tell all of the truth. Some of these decks, there could be other decks out there that are performing much better, and you just have one section of people bringing down a certain deck. Like junk decks is a great example. Those perform really well, but the large majority don't operate them the best, right? But with that, let's go to the top 5, and we're not going to go through these decks again because we've gone through all of them today. But I've got number 5 at Rocks and Hawks. Number 4 is Wicked Destroy as far as just reliability and its win rate over just so many games played. We have a Nihilist Bounce at number 3, a very tough deck to beat, and this is my personal flavor pick to really stomp in Infinite Conquest and beyond. Now at number 2 and 1, they're kind of together. It's going to be what you hate, and the comments are going to go wild. The deck we went through, Loki by Night and Alioth Lockdown, or any form version of Control with Alioth, are all doing obviously the best right now in Marvel Snap, and should give you the best chance to win as far as consistency goes of games played and win rate involved. And that's going to be it for your December meta report. We do have some more patches that hopefully change things. I think Alioth in some form or fashion and Loki are probably going to get adjusted, whether it's this month or next one. I don't know how long their reign is going to last, but hopefully today's video helped you guys out. If it did, be sure to subscribe down below. And if you want to see me stream on a weekly basis, check out my Twitch channel. I'll drop that in the description as well. You guys have a good one. Have a great one. Good luck out there in this crazy, this meta is something else. Anyway, have a good one. Have a great one. Till the next one. Happy snapping.